Mike's on. Hey, how we doing tonight?
Hey there. What's up? What's good?
Welcome back and then we're going to do our Season 1 review or recap of The Witcher.
On Netflix.
Yep, Witcher on Netflix. So if you haven't watched it, go check it out. Then come back and check this out. Also, we have videos for each episode, kind of breaking down what we liked about it, what we thought about it, kind of a recap on that and review. There'll be a link in a card that'll take you to that playlist, and at the end there'll be links to other playlists for our show and our reviews on The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So with that, keep in mind this is spoilers. There are spoilers.
Very.
Also, Witcher is definitely an adult show, so keep that in mind depending on who's in the room when you watch it. There are a lot of adult themes.
Very.
And a shout out to Syrinscape for the background music that you're hearing as we talk. Check out Syrinscape.com and take your game to the next level. And with that, what's up?
What is good?
I'm getting tired, man. It's kind of a long day today.
Yeah, it was a very long day, but we got through it.
We got through it just like we got through The Witcher. So, Season 1, what do you think as far as setting the bar for this series?
I think The Witcher overall is a very different kind of fantasy. It's a dark, as you preluded to when we were doing our little prelude research for this, dark fantasy, and it is the epitome of that phrasing of dark and fantasy, because
it's dark, it's violent. I mean, it's like he's definitely. If you were a fan of Spartacus, Blood and Sand, if you are a fan, I don't think there's a whole lot of Game of Thrones elements, but it's definitely got the grit of some elements of Game of Thrones,
some of that grittiness. But
it is definitely a wild ride. I think you were comparing it closely to certain anime.
Yeah, structural wise, because unlike most series, there is a through line for this series, but not in the traditional linear method. There isn't like an overarching story with episodic, content. It's branching of timelines. Like a lot of animes, most animes, they have maybe not branching timelines, but their typical outlines. They start from the unknown and come into the known. So they fill in with pieces and gaps, and what that allows you to do is to go on this journey with characters and get close enough to them that when all the pieces come together, you understand the purpose, there's an emotional tie-ins, and there are true consequences to actions. And that's what you feel in this series, because they start from the unknown, they drop you in this world, they provide exposition through just interaction, character development, but also through how they play with the timeline. And at least for me, everything clicked. I mentioned it is episode 4.
That's where everything kind of
That's where everything melded together. Where outside of knowing all the fantastical elements and understanding the tropes and archetypes of all the characters, episode 4 is what brings all those expositional elements together. So you know the purpose of all the timelines.
Yes, episode 4 is definitely a good point where it's the aha moments.
Yeah, there's a lot of aha moments in episode 4 for me.
For me, episode 6 is probably my favorite.
Episode 6. Oh yeah, well, I did say that was one of my favorites. Or not, that's one I really liked.
6 and 7 are probably. I mean, 7's definitely, because all of a sudden it's like it all. For me, 7 is where it all kind of clicked together, and probably because I had been watching it, so. Going back on my second watch through now, it's like, okay, I'm seeing more details.
Oh, yeah.
But this has definitely been a great breath of fresh air for a series.
Yeah, I think this is a fantasy series that levels out the ideas of what we assume is fantastical with lore that is unknown. Because it plays around with a lot of the fantasy tropes. Because when you think about fantasy, you think about Lord of the Rings, you think about Harry Potter, and Game of Thrones to an extent. So you have a set standard of what you think magic and mysticism should be. This one flips it on its head, because there are the one thing that this has against a lot of other fantasy stories out there, regardless of film, movies, games, comics, there are consequences to the way you use magic in this world, as well as a lot of dangers everywhere. like everywhere, human and monsters alike.
So from looking over this, it looks like so this whole first season has been, obviously this is based on the best-selling book series,
yes,
of The Witcher, which preludes the 3 games.
Yeah.
So, and it looks like this whole first season has been a combination of The Last Wish and The Sword of Destiny.
Yes.
And with a little bit of elf's blood at little bits of it, but this first season seems to be a combination of those books in the inspiration for these episodes. Oh, yeah. And I think it's really good because it allows us to introduce the 3 major characters.
Oh yeah, it puts a strong pin on those 3 main characters, with Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri, which have been main characters throughout all the different stories, including the games.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was definitely more the Wild Hunt because that's a little fresher in people's minds.
Yes.
But Witcher and Witcher 2 definitely... I mean, Witcher 2 is a lot of Triss Marigold. Yeah. There wasn't really a whole lot of Yennefer in that one.
No. But you still are commanding Geralt.
Yeah, and we know that Nilfgaard is coming through. We see where that's going to end. I like how they don't try to rewrite what happens, because thinking about a lot of people who've only exposure to this might be what they've heard about the game, maybe not necessarily played the game, but this doesn't, and unlike other series where they try to do a prequel, where there's already established content out there, and now we're going to try to do something unless you're going like stupid early.
Thousands years.
This one is like, we're literally talking only about 20 or 30 years because of Ciri's age.
Yes.
And it's like, there's a lot going on. So it's nice that this doesn't really try to redo that, but it definitely tells us there is a lot of layer and a lot of personality to each of these characters. I mean, Geralt, even though everybody keeps saying, I've heard stories of Witchers, they have no emotions, Geralt seems to display a hell of a lot of emotion.
He is very ironic with that tale, because he might be stoic and might be very somber, but if you
cynical. I always take him as cynical.
Yeah, I always saw it as very just somber, because he's just kind of chill until you flip a switch in him, and then he just goes
But I always took him as quite cynical. It's like, I don't care.
No, he's just a wanderer.
But he seems to have a lot of influence and so many acquaintances.
Yes.
I mean, it's just nuts how many people he knows.
Yeah, it's just again, wandering,
living as long as he does. He's bound to have established a reputation.
Yes.
So
the White Wolf.
Yeah, the White Wolf. So, any other highlights from the whole series for you?
Just the overall world building. They do it in a very indifferent way. Like, they just kind of just level it through either interaction with the monsters, just kind of, you have this, like, the way I see it, you're following these 3 characters, but there's a step back feeling where you're just kind of there watching things evolve. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of this, the whole thing I got from this is that you get to see a living and breathing world, but it's not forced down your throat through just typical exposition. That it's just through conversation, through interaction, through just location. So it does enough to liter your interest, but doesn't just convolute everything. There's just enough there to where, okay, we know these are important artifacts. Now, how is this going to play going forward?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Yeah. To your world building, it's the locations. It's like we see the Brotherhood and how they're trying to have these machinations and control the world and control society through the various kingdoms. You have the mage school, which is taking these kids and turning them into mages. Then you have the Witchers and the commoners, how they hate. It's this kind of love-hate for the Witchers. Because the Witchers are different, but it's like you need a monster killed, your best bet's to find a Witcher.
Yeah. They basically want to toss him out out to.
And the fact that you have these various races, and they feel very organic to the world. They don't feel like they've always been there. Because some fantasy things, it's like, oh, we have elves, and we have dwarves, and we have this, and we have that. And it's like, sometimes they feel forced in, like you're taking this kind of society and just, forcing them in. This one, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like, it's just another day on the job.
Yeah, there's that wandering mentality because of the kind of characters you're following. But the characters, they're just kind of there. They're just living their life. They live in the world, and you just know that they're elves and dwarves and reavers and all these crazy monsters. So it's just...
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen in Season 2?
I think the way that Season 1 ended, Nilfgaard got pushed back because of Yennefer's OP power. So now Nilfgaard is still going to try to invade the north.
Oh, we know they will.
Yeah. So because they want to conquer the whole continent. But Season 2, I think, is going to focus on a lot of those artifacts that were littered throughout, either through conversations or through consequences of people's actions.
I think it'll be definitely some talk because a lot of mages lost their lives. I think it's also going to be... I think we're going to get a lot of the whole Ciri and Geralt.
Yeah. I think you're going
to... And then
even
Ciri and Yennefer.
Yeah. I think you're going to explore more places than what was seen. So you're going to get Kaer Morhen. I think you might go to Skellige. You're going to see a lot of the Northern Kingdoms. And I also think you're going to see a lot of other places that mages... There was the whole thing of taboo, that taboo effect on what mages can and can't do.
Well, the Nilfgaard mages are definitely doing some of the darker, crazier stuff.
Yeah, I think that's going to force the other mages to break that circle of we can't do this, and it's going to force some other...
There's an event in the games where the mages all kind of got together to deal with something, and it was a massive calamity because of it.
Yeah. I think with them pushing that barrier, it's going to bring in unforeseen things that should not be invading this world.
Yeah, especially White Flame is definitely going to be
is one of those big things, and I'm still not going to say what. If you play the games, you have an idea, but not knowing where they're going to go with that. But if they bring in certain elements of that, what that White Flame is, it's going to be pretty interesting.
All right.
A whole other plane of existence. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild in the game.
So, what do we think about our cast choices for this? Now that we've seen them go through.
I think they embody the true, at least based on all the stuff I know from the lore, they embody the true essence of what the characters, on how the characters were written.
Mm-hmm.
So you get true individuality, even at times when, they play on the tropes a little too hard. Sometimes, not to the point where it's like, ugh. But, it's obvious, but it doesn't take away from the enjoyment. But the main three, I think, are spot on.
Yes, I definitely think I think Henry Cavill is definitely Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah.
That's going to be his thing. He's got that on. That's him.
Yes.
And I think the actress who plays Yennefer, I've got to give her props. She did the whole having to go through what she went through to bring this character to life, from the early hunchback all the way to this beautiful, powerful figure. I think is definitely a credit to her acting ability, as well as a credit to the support staff on set, as well as the director and the writing.
Yeah.
So, but I think they did good. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a lot of guest stars in this. I mean, it was like 15 to 20 different guest stars based on the some of what's going on. So it's very interesting how we're going to kind of see that going forward. Who else is going to want to guest and get in here? And we also have to point out the fact that, love it or hate it, this show is now the most on-demand digital property.
Oh yeah,
for streaming.
It speaks to one to two things. That one, Netflix ain't gonna die out. There's always been this. There's a Netflix killer every other day, but it's not. This just plays into the fact that Netflix will just keep churning out content because of their risk to wanting to try new things.
Yeah, if Netflix goes away, it's not because of shows like this.
No. Two, it shows the strength of the fantasy genre. It plays into the fact that you have
People are sick of procedurals.
Yeah, they're sick of procedurals. They're sick of the typical, sitcoms. But when you have stuff like Game of Thrones, Outlander, Spartacus, The Mandalorian, you have all these. The Boys. You can even put The Boys in there. You have all of these films that push the bounds of their genre, of blending not just what you expect, but pushing it into more fantastical and different means. People enjoy that. They enjoy you blending fantastical with other things. Dark fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, comic book fantasy, everything in between. You can even throw in Star Trek Picard in there too. Because I know that's a popular one right now too.
Yeah, that was highly anticipated,
But yeah, it shows the strength of the fantasy genre. This series, not a lot of people know about it, other than maybe diehard gamers.
Well,
and
even the books are really obscure unless you happen to come
you read
across
them in
it.
certain order. So, like you said, the high on demand. That means it's going beyond the hardcore fans. People are like, oh, what is this?
What is this? Yeah, and it beat out Mandalorian as far as popularity right now.
Oh yeah.
So it's just good. It's good that Mandalorian wrapped up.
Yeah.
Right as Witcher released.
Yes. Netflix was just like.
So.
But it's okay.
I think with that, I think we can call this one done.
Done. Yeah. Good and great.
So thank you for watching. Go ahead and if you enjoyed this, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and you know what? Put something in the comments. What show should we review next?
You want us to do more fantasy? Cop drama, sci-fi drama, any genre,
or just kind of go through and review a show, whether it's episode by episode, or give us some season or opinions on what's on certain shows. Leave a comment, tell us what you think. With that, thank you for watching. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.